that was when the tie between me and Graham broke. It doesn't really matter, because as that song says, it doesn't matter whatever happens, I'll never forget. And that relationship that I had with Graham, and now I have that back again.
Buddy's back. Buddy's back. Buddy's back.
So I'm here with Allan Clarke. Thank you very much for joining me, Allan. I really appreciate it.
Nice to be here. This is brilliant.
So I like to start things off by taking a look at the early years of a musician. So what first got you into wanting to become a musician, first off?
It was chance. That's what it was. It was something that just happened. It wasn't something that I was looking forward to, or I was trying to emulate anybody. It was one of those things that happen in a lifetime that you never know is going to happen. So I didn't take anything serious enough to sort of think that I was going to be where I am now. But saying that, when I met Graham, how long ago is it now? Oh, no, I'm not going to say. It's about 76 years, I think, when we met at school. He put his hand up when the teacher asked, is there a space next to anybody who would like this Harold Clarke, because that's my real name, to sit next to him. And Graham put his hand up, and I suppose that was the start of everything that happened by chance. By chance, we were chosen to sing in front of the assembly one morning at school, because someone had heard us singing in the assembly down from the little stage we had, and they thought that we could do a really good job of singing the Lord's Prayer, which we did. And I noticed that actually Graham was singing harmony to me, and that's not bad at the age of 7. I'm not even thinking about it. Okay, so we became friends. We did everything that young kids do in those days. I lived in a house where it was 3 up and 3 down, and there was 9 people in that house with a toilet outside in a yard. Now I was the last born, so I was the youngest child in the family. So I didn't really notice anything that was going on around me. It was just a normal childhood thing. I could go on about all the things that happened in the 40s, but that's what old people do. So I'm not going to do that. Graham was the same. He lived in a 2 up and 2 down with his mum and dad and his sister Elaine. He just had it that little bit better than me. There was only 4 mouths to feed in that family. In mine, there was 9. So, as far as I was concerned, I had a great childhood with Graham. Used to do all the normal things, going to the park every day, going to school, doing all the classes. Then we had the 11 plus, which I didn't pass. Not that made any difference to me, but it might have been if Buddy Holly hadn't come along. But there you go. Graham did pass his 11 plus, and then he went to the grammar school, which sort of separated us quite a bit. But we did used to meet, at my brother's house, which wasn't too far away from where we lived. And that's what we did with our lives up to being the age of 14. At 14, this guy came on scene called Lonnie Donegan, and every kid in England, right, wanted to be Lonnie Donegan because he played a kind of music called skiffle music, and me and Graham loved it, and we thought, should we get a guitar? Never thinking that we were going to be able to afford that sort of thing. But our dads got together, and I got a guitar, and he got a guitar, and we learned 3 chords, and we spent most of our later, it more or less in each other's bedrooms, learning Rock Island Line and Bring a Little Water Sylvie and all those sort of Cumberland Gap and all those songs. And we really enjoyed doing that. And there was no thought of going any further. But we were a skiffle pair. We never had a band. We were just a skiffle pair. And we even called ourselves the 2 Teens, because we just got into our teens. It was one of those things. And I mean, should I go on from that? I can do a monologue of my whole life if you want. But what happened, after we'd done the Lonnie Donegan thing, we were playing my brother Frank, who who actually did start all this for us. Some of the time I wish he hadn't, but I'm glad that he did. We were in his house and we were doing Rock Island Line, and my brother Frank came in and he said, "Oh, that sounds really good." He said, "There's a club not too far from me. Why don't we go down there and see if they'll put you on?" We said, "Well, why? Why should we do that?" He said, No, it'd be a good experience. So we all went up to this. It was called the Devonshire Sporting Club, and it was run by an ex-wrestler, I think, or a boxer. And he could hardly talk. His nose was all bent and that. And he said to us when we were presented, Frank said, "These are my kids, and they're here, and they want to go on." Well, not his kids, but these are these guys. I think they're pretty good to do a show here. So he looked us up, us down, and I think we were still wearing short trousers then. I think we may have been. And our little guitars, no cases. And we had full strings because, sometimes we used to break them and it took us ages to put another string on because it was new to us. So we were there fully strung. And he said, "Right, I want you to go on stage. I don't know what's before you." It was one of those clubs that were filled with workmen and work ladies, because that's the kind of place that I lived with all these people around, and they're all wearing caps and and smoking woodbines and having pints and all that, and it was a new experience that we got there. And so we were introduced, ladies and gentlemen, we had two boys now here from Salford. We're going to sing you some skiffle, the two teens. And we walked on, and it was all quiet. Everything went quiet. And we thought, oh my God, what are we doing? So, okay, come on, Graham, let's give them a Rock Island Line. So we did 3 songs, all of the skiffle songs with Lonnie Donegan. We learnt off Lonnie Donegan. And the place just went wild. And everybody was standing up and clapping and saying, "Yeah, great," and all that. So we came off, and the guy met us at as we got off the stage, and he said, "Oh, I thought that was really great, lads. I'm going to give you 10 bob." Now, 10 shillings in those days was quite a few. It was quite a lot of money to 2 young kids. And we said, "Oh, thank you very much. That's 50p each, or 50 shillings each, 5 shillings each. Where am I?" And he said, "And I've got some more clubs that you could play for me. And if you do a weekend of my clubs, I'll give you a £5." And that was £5. Well, we walked out the club not knowing what was going to happen, and Frank said to me, "Well, we better look for some more clubs that we can put you on as the two teens." And that's how it started. It started getting serious, and we were just doing it because it was fun. Not really for the money, but that did help, because our parents weren't earning that much in those days. So, when we used to share it with them, it was quite handy. And through that period from 14 to 21, Graham and I had so many changes within that 5 years of being many groups. From 2 teens, we turned into the I think it was the Levins, because there was a guitar out at that particular time, and they were called Levins. So we had actually did a transition from playing skiffle into doing Buddy Holly songs, because luckily enough for us, they had 3 chords, and those are the 3 chords that we knew. Rock and roll was like that, so it's very easy. And of course, we were getting older, we were getting very much wiser, and we fell in love with rock and roll, especially Buddy Holly. Wasn't around for long enough, and we thought he was wonderful, and we did all his songs. And Graham and I used to go out to dance halls and jive, and try and pick up a bird, something like that. And And there was one time we were in this club, and all of a sudden we heard this noise coming from the speakers, and it was these two guys called the Every Brothers. And we went, oh my God, when we did actually get into doing the things that they did, like Wake Up Little Susie, Bird Dog, all that sort of thing, we became Ricky and Dane Young. Ricky and Dane Young, and that's what we were. And we went around Manchester, and we went around, into other places, being Ricky and Dane Young, and doing Every Brothers, Buddy Holly, and doing more or less the same coffee bars. We're playing those sort of things, and we did that for quite a while.
Of course, you guys kind of went on to form the Hollies, in 1962.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously you were kind of known for that distinctive 3-part kind of vocal harmony.
That came much later. 3-part came much later.
Yeah.
In the Hollies, another year in to the whole. That's when Tony decided that the recording manager decided that he should put a third harmony. It made life a little more difficult, actually, because Tony wasn't used to singing, but he finally got it. That's how that sound was produced. Come on, Tony, you got to sing on this. It wasn't something that we had together right from the start. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Around that time, did you feel that there was something special happening with the Hollies? Was there a kind of something building? Like, did you get the feeling that you were going to go on and get these kind of hit singles? And
we actually became quite not famous because we weren't known outside of Liverpool and Birmingham and the surrounding dance places that you go to be whoever you were that day. But we did do a lot of that stuff before we were the Hollies, and we had several people in the band. And Pete Bockin was a fabulous guitarist, and he came to us one night when we were being Ricky and Dane Young, and said, "You need a band. You need a guitarist." And after he showed us how well he could play all the licks and everything in every song that we said, okay, do Bruce Wayne tunes, okay, do an Elvis song, okay, do a Buddy Holly song, and every time he did that, out came this performance of every song that we asked him to do, with the solos as well, and he also had a Stratocaster, which was absolutely fabulous because we'd never seen one before. So he became the third part. And we got a guy in called Butch Metham, and I liked him a lot because his mum had a cake shop, and it was good because he used to give us cakes and things like that. But he had a really nice bass as well. It was a Fender bass, and of course, when you go into a 3/4, you need amplifiers and you need microphones, and we've never needed that before, so that was a new step. And from that group, we went into the Four Tones. That was funny because there were 5 of us, and the Four Tones then turned into, I think it was the Dominators of Rhythm, and when we'd actually got to a certain nice, we got enough songs to actually go out and do a show like with that format, the Four Tones, and me as the lead singer, and it was one nearly Christmas, I think, 1962. There was a club in Lloyd Street, Manchester, called the Oasis, where everybody used to play. The Beatles played there. Everybody played there, like we did at the Cavern in Liverpool. We played there a lot with a lot of people. The Beatles, the Searchers, all the people gathered around that club when it was their turn to do it. And at that particular time, there wasn't any. There were a lot of people who liked the Beatles and a lot of people who liked the Hollies. So there was like an unknown fan base whenever you got to a club. There was all the people there that wanted us there. And what happened was us going out as the Hollies, Beatles going out as the Beatles. And we were doing stuff that we'd heard from the West Coast of America, all the really good rhythm and blues songs, like John Lennon was singing like Twist and Shout. And it was like even before anything was going to be happening to us or going to be recording artists and things like that. And more or less everybody was doing the same sort of songs, just doing it in a different way. And in 1962, we went to play at the Oasis. We got ready to go on, and the guy says, well, what should we call you? Because you haven't got a name. So, I mean, I can quite easily say that I said the Hollies, but then some say that, oh, no, I said the Hollies. But anyway, someone said, and I thought it was me, call us the Hollies for tonight, which they did, and that stuck, But when we left that club, we thought, well, we've got a sound now. We've got a really good sound. And we went out as the Hollies after that into the new year of 63. And 1963, a lot happened within a space of 3 months. And there's just like too much to talk about of how that happened and why. But I think the main reason was that every group will probably say the same thing as myself, is if it wasn't for the Beatles, they'd be not here now. They actually opened the doors for all the groups that we weren't like London groups who were using a lot of Vincent and things like that. Okay, the Shads, I love the Shadows, things like that, But Cliff and the Shadows and Monty, not Monty. There was like Joe Brown and I mean, I loved them. I thought they were great. They were great as the American rock and rollers. So here it was, this new band of people that came from the north that have these funny accents that are singing great songs without the need to have, echo and all that sort of crap. And they were there. They started it with Love Me Do. Then all the record companies down south, and I've said this many times before, but they wanted their own Beatles, because I were making a load of money. And what happened was Ron Richards, who became our producer, came to see us at the Cavern. Funny place to go and see a band in the Cavern, because it was a really, I mean, just walls and sweat, and the used to bounce off everything, but nobody cared. Graham had no strings on his guitar, by the way, that night, and I've never ever seen him plug it in. No, anyway, so even with the four of us, and the five of us with Graham's vocals, of course, Ron Richards said, yeah, we'll take you down to EMI and we'll give you an audition. So we, maybe a couple of weeks later, we went down there in our van. First time we'd sort of gone down to the Big Smoke, as we used to call it, as a band. And we went to EMI recording studios, which became Abbey Road, as we all know. And what we did, we just stood in front of the mic, and I think they mic'd Bobby up, because everything that was done in those days was 4-track. 4 tracks, when you think about it now, it's like cavemen playing. But after that, they said, well, you've got the job, you're in, we're signing you. And that's where our career started. 1963. With the recordings. And also, of course, I'm missing out Tony, and I shouldn't do, but Tony had joined the band after we'd been on that, we'd done the Oasis, because the guy that was playing with us, Vic, we used to call him Vic Flick, he didn't want to turn professional, so he left the group. So we had to get a guitarist as soon as possible, and we actually pinched him from the Dolphins. They were a threesome, and he came to listen to us and stood outside a grill in the road because he didn't want to come into the club. I think it was called the Twisted Wheel in Manchester, and we were doing a gig. And when we came out, he said, "Yeah, I like it, but I'm going to have to ask my dad first," because he was only 17. I mean, nobody knew what we were getting into. He was an apprentice. In those days, when you were an apprentice, it was 5 years, and you started I started at 14. You start at 14, and then when you go through the whole process of learning to do a job at 21, then you're a male. You can actually ask for more money. I thought that was slavery myself, But look, even up for me and Graham, we were going out and we were doing gigs. So, the money wasn't really a problem because we did share it around. But Tony then came and he was in the group when we went down to the cabin and all that and got stuff. And then we became famous. Nice. Yeah, he's popping out of the hat. There he was, which with me was just a thing that happened. So let's go along with it. Great.
You mentioned there, of course, the whole Beatles connection and going down to EMI, which would be Abbey Road, further down the line. Did you have, I imagine you were kind of years later recording at roughly the same kind of time. Did you have kind of any encounters there or any kind of sneak previews of songs that would go on to be?
Look, one of the last gigs that the Beatles did, and I'm sure that this wasn't the one, it was Stoke-on-Trent. And it was a ballroom there that we always used to play. And we got double billed with the Beatles. So it was the Beatles and the Hollies playing at this Stoke-on-Trent gig. Anyway, we knew them and they knew us. But I have heard some things in John Lennon was a bit wary about the Hollies because we had some really good harmonies, So, we don't want them to take over. But we were both in the same dressing room. And they started, they were starting doing something where they with their guitars. And they said, we're just writing a song. Do you want to help? So we said, yeah, we sort of did a few things, changed the lyric or whatever it was there. And that was it. We went on, did our gig. They went on and did their gig, and then we parted. And we actually didn't see them again until we did actually get to EMI, where we passed like ships in the night. But I think that song was called "Misery," for the Beatles, and I'm still waiting for the contract. So there you go. That's just one of those stories, we never got it. It could have been, it could have been Lennon, McCartney, Clarke, Nash.
Could have been. What could have been?
It didn't allow it, so there you
go. I recall reading somewhere that you kind of, in EMI, you kind of overheard Paul McCartney kind of making Hello Goodbye at some point.
Well, he wasn't making it; he was writing it.
Writing "Hello Goodbye."
Well, I was going into the studio to do something myself, and I walked past the door of the famous studio, the big studio down the stairs and that, and I opened going in, and I looked through the window, and you could see down the stairs there was Paul was at the piano. And he was jangling away, and he was singing this. I say goodbye, and I say hello, hello, hello. I know that I say goodbye. You say yes, and I say no. So he finished, and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm just writing this song." I said, "Oh," I said, "Are those the lyrics?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, best of luck with that then, Paul." And I left him to it, and what happened? You say hello, I say goodbye. What a fantastic record. Not a lot of lyrics in it, really, but they, you've got George Harry, you got George Martin, on the board. He can change anything into magic, George could. But no, he had the Beatles with him to do that as well. But just one of those other things that happen in one's life as you studio. Sometimes you couldn't get in the studio because of the Beatles had got it booked, and that's when he started going into. When you went to EMI to make a record, you would have a slot of 3.5 hours. You'd go in at 2:00 and you'd leave at 5:30. But if you had a double, you could go from 6:00 till 10. And every so often when you did those gigs, a man used to walk in with a tray in front of him with a little brown envelope with your session fee in, which we thought was really great because this was an added bonus, 17 quid for doing this. Okay, great. And, everything changed because after that, after the Beatles were getting really, really hot, and they were really doing a lot more with their records as the advancement of the recording situation is going from 4-track to 6-track to 8-track, then to 10-track. Then you'd be working with 2-inch tapes, then you'd be working with no tapes at all. Everything would be going. They all turned digital in the end, don't you know? And they used to take a lot longer with their sessions, and they used to book 3 weeks at a time, or maybe 2 months at a time to get into what they did. And I think the biggest thing that they did in their career was the Sgt. Pepper's album, which actually nobody was allowed into the studio, not even me. Yeah. No, but this time I remember. Again, I was working down in the studio, and Paul came in and he said, "Alan, are you doing anything?" I said, "No." "Why?" He said, "I want you to come up and do some harmonies with me." So I went up to the other studio where he was working, and Linda was there, and I put some harmonies on what he told me, and he said, "Thank you very much, Al. That's really great." That was the Back to the Egg album, that did on its own, and about 3 weeks later of the release of that, a huge black car arrived outside my house, and the guy with the cap knocked on the door, and he said to me, "Oh, Paul says thank you very much, and he asked me to give you this." And I thought, when I got it in, it was a gold bracelet with the Back to the Egg on it, and everybody that worked on the album got one. And the worst of that is that I went and played a gig I even know where it was, in Wimbledon, and I always used to wear it. I should have done, but I did. And when I got home, I found it wasn't there on my wrist.
Oh, no.
I don't know where. If anybody out there that knows of somebody that's walking around with a gold bracelet.
Yeah, somebody in Wimbledon.
Yeah, it's mine. If you found it in Wimbledon, it's mine. Please return it. There is a reward. No, but, yeah, we used to pass, we used to talk. I used to go to places that Paul used to have a birthday for Buddy Holly every year, and he used to hire a place and then join we'd get all his mates to come, and we'd jam on stage together and just sing all rock and roll, and then eat the food there, just meet each other, and then, do a couple of Buddy Holly songs and then go home. And we did that for quite a while. It did stop eventually, because there's something about Buddy Holly's publishing, I think, because Mary Elena, who is his wife, right? I get them mixed up between Peggy Sue and Mary Elena, but he never married Peggy Sue. So yeah, and I think that Paul had his publishing, and he lost it. So I thought that was the thing that I'm not going to do any more parties anymore. It's a shame, because it was a really good, we had a lot of fun. Another thing,
Or like weirdly surreal.
Well, be on stage. I was on stage with Paul. Shamefully, Gary Glitter was on the other side of him, and
that's aged well.
In the audience, clapping, and you look at, and it's just mates, so look, it's Tim Rice. So look, they were just mates. Yeah.
Jumping a bit forward, of course, in 1968, Graham decided to depart the band after loads of hits and whatnot,
Yes.
going on to form Crosby, Stills and Nash.
He divorced. That's what
Exactly. What was that time like for you personally? Obviously, this is a guy that's been with you from the very beginning.
Yeah.
That must have been, a difficult period for you, kind of adjusting.
Well, it was 2 years in my life that I didn't know what was happening in Graham. But there was a point, I think, that actually it changed something in Graham, was when we recorded King Madison Reverse. And he wanted to do his own Sgt. Pepper's album. And he wrote a lot of songs, we wrote a lot of songs, and he wanted to go down on this one as the songs that he's written, and we wanted to go, well, we had to go on the way that we'll do the ones that we wrote. That was the album Butterfly. Now, the song didn't actually do anything, King Midas. With all the paraphernalia that was put on it, I think the only thing that wasn't on it was the kitchen sink, and it bombed. You know, Graham was very, very upset. And when you say bombed, it went in at 15. You know, to most people that'd be, oh, let me have one 15. You know, and he was very discontent. I remember one night, not too long after that, me and my wife Jenny and his wife Rose, we were in the flat which he had, and we said, well, you know, that's a bit of a disappointment, Graham. I said, why don't we write a silly song? He said, well, yeah, okay, let's write a silly song. And we wrote Jennifer Eccles as a joke, you know. And even my wife wrote 2 lines of it, you know, and so it was one of those things, yeah, free for all. Let's put that in, let's put that in. And we took it into the studio and we recorded it. And I could see, you know, that Graham didn't really have his heart into it because he knew that this wasn't the type of thing that he wanted to do. And he made number 2, which was something that, you know, this was something that the Hollies were known for doing, this type of stuff. Not King Midas in reverse. I think we'd gone there too soon, you know. Anyway, from then on, Graham went into the. He was meeting a lot of other people. He was getting involved with a lot of other groups, but we were still making records. Was it I Can't Tell a Bottom from the Top or Listen to Me? I think. He was still doing those. Intermediate of us going to America, doing things in America, and he'd be gone half the time. And where have you been? Oh, I've just been seeing a friend of mine, you know, name's Mama Cass. And, you know, so he kept meeting these people. And he also met, well, David Crosby and Stephen Stills. You know, I mean, Stephen Stills, I'd met Stephen Stills a couple of years before when they just formed, not a couple of years, maybe 3 or 4 years, when they formed Buffalo Springfield. And I loved their stuff. I mean, I think that group was absolutely fabulous. And also, you know, the Byrds. I didn't know that Crosby was that important. I thought it was Gene Clark that was the force with the Byrds. And I suppose that David was feeling the same way as Graham. And I suppose that Stephen was thinking the same because Neil was wanting to go somewhere else and he wanted to do other stuff. And of course, the 3 of them got together one night I was in the hotel, and they were in our suite that we were at. So I said, I'm tired, I'm going to bed. And the 3 of them were there just messing about on the guitars. And that was when the tie between me and Graham broke. And, he was more serious about doing that with them rather than doing what he did with us. No, I was, when I did actually find out, I didn't really know what to say. I was just dumbfounded. I was, you know, why is he doing this? Many years after, I realized, you know, that it was the right thing for him to do. But what he was thinking about going to America, what he was going to do in America, he didn't think about leaving us without Graham to be able to go out as a group, because he was a spokesman for most of the time. And so he was quite forward within the group. And so after the crushing blow, I really wasn't well for a while because I felt awful. But I thought, I've got a family, you know, I've got children. I've got to feed mouths, so I better do something about this. And I met this guy, Terry Sylvester, Liverpudlian, though.
Oh, dear.
But, you know, when he opened his mouth and his voice came out, I thought, oh, that's it. You've got the job. And he into the group. And we recorded another type of Hollies song called Sorry Suzanne, and bang, number 2. So the pressure had been taken off me then, knowing that it's okay. He left. I didn't need him anyway. So he's gone. Now we're going to do our thing. And eventually, further along the line, we had more hits than Graham had actually with them. So he says in a video that we did for it's a DVD to put out, and he says that when he's being interviewed, that he says, yeah, I left the group and the Hollies, they went out on their own. He says, and they went ahead and they got 2 number ones. How dare they have done that without me? So but me and Graham, we're seeing each other on and off, just nodding at each other, saying, yeah, I'm doing as well as you, mate. No, but we had one of those faraway friendships. He was doing a lot of other people, and I was, I had a family, and I was doing a lot with the rest of the guys, and we were doing very, very well.
One of my personal kind of favorite Hollies singles is "Long Cool Woman."
Really?
It has this kind of real cool, kind of iconic intro, and it's got this real kind of classic rock vibe, a bit of a different flavor to a lot of the other stuff. How did that come about?
It came out of nowhere. It just came out of nowhere. I met a guy, Roger Cook, with Mink. Now, I used to get on very well with Roger Cook. And he said, well, should we write some songs? And I was with the Hollies, right? I said, yeah, okay, where should we meet? He said, well, go down to the manager's office, where the producers hang out. So they've got a little room there with the piano, and I'll bring my ukulele, and you bring your guitar. So I said, all right. So the one thing that we took as well, because we didn't know how long we were going to go back down there, took a bottle of brandy. So we sat downstairs thinking, well, have you got any ideas? And Roger says, well, I've got this idea about a DA in America and him getting mixed up with like a prostitute, really. I thought, I said, hang on. So we started going through the ideas and things, and then I had my guitar, so I was going through. It was easy for me to play the guitar because it's only 4 chords, Right. So and I was messing about, and I thought, well, a little intro here. And all of a sudden, my fingers just went down this, and there was this intro. He said, oh, that's great. And that turned out to be Long Cool Woman. And that was all within a space of half an hour.
Wow.
So I thought, well, that's going to go on the album. We're recording. So I went to the studio, and I just presented this song to the guys. I played it and I sang it. And they went, oh, yeah, we've got to do that. He says, well, you play the guitar out, and Tony said, I'll put something on top of it, just to do a little bit of wiggling about. I said, okay. So there was Bobby, Bernie Calvert, and myself round a mic after I'd done the rhythm and the ding, 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 and I did it in about 2 takes. So I always thought the first take was better, but they picked the second one. So then did his bits on it. Ron Richards didn't produce it. So we're there, just the engineer was doing his thing. I forget what his name is. I'm sure Bobby knows his name. He remembers everything, Bobby. But that guy made it sound, what he was doing, he made it sound like that, right from what we were doing. Because we weren't treating it seriously. It was one of these very loose recordings, not thinking it was going to do anything at all. And by the time we'd finished it and put the slap echo on, it was, that'll go on the album. Well, it did go on the album. And Distant Light came out, and I had a bit of a set to with the boys, because I was writing those type of songs with Roger. And I wanted to do a solo album with some of the stuff that I was doing with him and other writers, like Tony McCauley, I was writing songs with as well. There's a Tony McCauley song on Distant Light. So I got really 2 good songs on that. And apart from the others. And, they said, well, no, we don't want you to do a solo album. And I think the reason was that they were quite wary about me. If I would left the group, then I'd get something going and I'd leave, which was the furthest thing from my mind. Because when you've got 3 children, you've got a wife, and you don't actually sit down and say, well, I'm sorry, mate, I'm going to do it anyway, but they were so belligerent about it and said, well, look, if you're going to leave, we're going to fire you.
Wow.
Don't come back. So I made the decision that I'd go. I said, okay, it's your decision. It's not mine. So, and I just met a guy called Ray Glynn, who was an absolutely fantastic guitarist. He played all the West Country stuff, and really, amazing. And for 3 years, I went out there and I made about 3-4 albums. I even went over to America and recorded albums in America, but that was much after. I mustn't get too far ahead of myself. For about 3 years. And most of that 3 years, I was just recording. And in my mind, I was thinking, well, should I go out on the road? But the thing that I didn't really think was that I could actually go out on the road and sing all Hollies songs with my own band, which I never did. Well, I never did. I could have done that quite easily, but I didn't because I thought the stuff that I was doing was better than what they was doing. So that might have been a mistake. But anyway, after 3 years, Tony came to see me and he said, it's not working for us. Will you come back? I said, well, I didn't want to leave anyway, Tony, but yeah, I'll come back. Why shouldn't I? And I did. I carried on doing my solo albums and they and we did stuff together and everything was hunky-dory. Sometimes I went to America. I went about once a year, made 3 albums over there, and it didn't interfere with the Hollies at all. So really, then they knew then that I wouldn't have left. But what I did in that 3 years, it got some acclaim, but it didn't actually shoot up like a meteor in any. No, I had a top 40 hit in America with a song called "Shadow in the Street," which is as close as I got on myself as a solo artist. But Long Cold Woman's been good to me.
It's always such a hard thing, I think, when you try and replace the singer of any band. It's like they're the voice of the band. It's such a difficult thing, and obviously with the Hollies, it's like it's your band. You can't really throw you out your own band.
I never classed it as my band. I was a piece of a group, and the songs that they were there, I loved singing them. There was a time when we were going out and we had people who were on the bill with us, so therefore instead of doing 2.5 hours a night, which we had never done before, you do an hour and a half. That's the second half. And somewhere along the line, they decided that they wanted to go out and do the whole show because we had enough songs to do that. And I thought, 2.5 hours. I said, how many shows are you going to do a week then? Those high notes weren't easy to hit. They're really up there. So I said it's got to be 4 a week. I've got to have the weekend off to get ready for the next 4, and it worked out that way, and it worked out very well. So that was what we did when we started doing 2.5 hour shows. I still didn't like doing 2.5 hours.
That's a long time.
It is a long. I know Bruce Springsteen goes out and he does about 5 hours. Best of luck to him, but he's not singing the air to breathe.
This is it. Jumping forward to kind of where we are now, obviously you've got a new album coming out on April 7th entitled I'll Never Forget, and almost kind of it's this nice kind of full circle thing, obviously linking back up with Graham for the lead single Buddy's Back. How did this album come about and this kind of relinking happen?
Well, you do know I did an album before this called Resurgence.
Obviously, yes, the album before as well.
I'm an old hand at making solo records. But the actual Resurgence thing just came out of the blue as well. It's just one of the things. Unfortunately, I think it's about 6 years now, I got prostate cancer, and you mustn't forget that I would have been away from the band about 15 years, and I was settled into a great life. Still am. But I was settled into a kind of life that was going really well. That's where we wanted to be at this particular time in our marriage, because this is a whole thing for me. It's not just me. It's, there's a lot of people around here that sometimes depend on what kind of person I am, So yeah, my life is going really, really well. But I got this cancer, and I was going to be treated for it, and was treated for it after that. But in that happening, I just suddenly sat down, pen and paper, and I wrote a poem, and it was bloody good. I thought, where did that come from? I actually showed it to a friend of mine. I said, read this, and he read it, and he went, oh, he said, who's that? Is that Byron? I said, what? I said, no, it's mine. He said, oh, she said, that's really nice. It's really nice. He said, why don't you put it to music? And that's when you start thinking about, well, the old voice is a bit croaky. It's even still a bit croaky now. But I'll give it a go. Now, I've got a guitar behind me, which is a Buddy Holly guitar, which is a copy of a famous guitar that he used to write all his songs on. And he actually covered it with leather and did all the workings on it. So it's quite an iconic guitar. And 25 lucky people 10 years ago were going to get a copy of one. No, there were 25 people, that's it. And they made 25 guitars at that particular time. And it was the Buddy Holly Education Foundation. And I was given one of these at the same time as Phil Everly. Fancy that. Fancy that. And we've got ours for life. And mine's called Peggy Sue Got Married. Now, I write all my songs on that. And sometimes I don't know where I'm going, but I write all my songs on that because it's got a beautiful sound, and it's also got a memory with it, if that makes any sense. And so I wrote a song called Journey of Regret, because I thought this one needed to be something else. So again, these lyrics I wrote down, and I suppose if anybody reads those lyrics of Journey of Regret, they'll think that it's a nonsense song. Because in one-liners, you've got to think about what the one line is meaning and what they are. There's certain things that happened to me through my life in one line, being regrets that I've done and regretted that I didn't do that, or I've regretted that I did do that. So there are happy lines and also sad lines in it. So you've got to get your head around what all those lines mean. I know what it means, but sometimes people can pick lines out of songs and go, oh yeah, I know what he's talking about there. So anyway, I'd written that song, and Jenny said to me, I think you should go a bit further with this, because my voice was getting stronger. I wasn't going anywhere up there. I can't visit there. And so I found a key that I was quite happy with, and went along with that. Well, I wrote about 5 songs, and I thought, well, maybe I can get someone else to do these songs, because I've got a publishing company. And I thought that's the most difficult thing in the world now, is to write songs and try and get someone else to write that, to actually do them, because most people write their own songs, and it's very difficult to get your own stuff covered. And I said, well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to make them a little bit better. Because I did all my demos on my computer here on GarageBand, and sometimes I didn't know what I was doing, and I had to lose the whole song. And all it is, you go to undo, and it brings it all back. So I didn't know that for about 2 months, So I thought I'll get my old friend Francis Haynes. He's a brilliant guy. He's a very old friend of mine, and we have recorded stuff together before. And he was with the Hollies for about 7 years. And so he said, I'll come up and I'll have some lunch with you. So he drove up, and I took him into, this is a bedroom, where I am now. But now it's my media room. It's very serious, doesn't it? And I played him the stuff, and he said, yeah, he said, I like that. I said, well, can we go down to your studio and sort of, put them in order? And obviously the solos that I'm playing, there's a lot of mistakes in them, but if you give you an idea where I want to go with it. And so I went down there I went down there for a couple of days, about 3 days a week for about 3 weeks. And we polished them off to a point. And I sent these songs over to a very good friend of mine, Saul Davis, in Los Angeles, and he's been trying to get me to record for about 30 years. You know, he sends me an email about once a week. I thought about doing anything yet? No, and he's sending me songs. I think, please don't ask me again. No, I'm never going to go out. I'm not going to do anything. And he comes back and says, you should get a deal on these. 3 weeks later, I get a call from a guy I've never known. His name is Hartwig Masuch, and he's the CEO of BMG Records. And he said, hi, Alan, I believe you're recording an album. I said, well, I think I am. And he said, well, I'd like to put it out for you. Where did that come from? You know, I said, well, okay. He said, yeah, okay. He said, I'd like to meet you. So I met him in London. We had lunch, talked to him about it, and he said, I am a great lover of your songs, Alan. When you did all that stuff with Graham, you had to bring Graham into it. So anyway, and I said, well, you know what, that's great. I'll do it. You know, you've got to give me time. He says, you take your time, you do your album, you present it to me, and I'll put it out. Which he did. And I got quite good acclaims for it. You know, people were saying, well, where did all that come from? I can't tell you. Sorry about that. That's in one of my songs on the new album. I can't tell you because I don't know. And it went very well. And now, because of that, I mean, I'm having to do Instagram and Facebook and all this and all, which would never interested me, but I still don't know how to do it properly. I don't do anything like that. But, you know, I've found that there's some people out there that really like the things that I'm doing, and they're very supportive to me. And I hope that this album goes as well as the last one. And they, you know, everything that's said about the last one, I hope we get those comments again. But I loved making that album. It was something that I never thought I'd ever do. But I've done it. Here I am making my other one with Graham. And the way that happened was that I had to go to Birmingham to have some photographs taken with my guitar. And they wanted to get the photograph with me and Graham. Fortunately, he was on at Birmingham. So I went up to Birmingham with my guitar and met him backstage along with he's got a great band. And we did all the usual things. Hey, how are you doing? And all that. I'm doing fine. And he said, I believe you've done an album. I said, yeah, I have. He said, I'd like to hear it. I said, well, you will one day. I said, well, you know, I don't carry it around with me. And he said, okay, well, you know, maybe we should get together sometime. At that particular time, Whispering Bob Smith, his wife, it is, isn't it? Whispering Bob. Anyway, you know, yeah. I mean, his wife was there, and she came to me, and she said, "Alan, I'm talking to you secretly, but we want to give an award to Graham for a lifelong achievement, being, you know, in what he's doing and all that." I said, "Okay." He said, "We want you to give it him." He said, "But it's not until 6 months. In 6 months, will you keep a date open?" I said, "Well, yeah, I'm not doing anything." So for 6 months, I kept that secret. And it was at the Hackney Empire. I'm sure it used to be a glorious theatre at one time, the Hackney Empire. But it looked a bit run down to me. But anyway, I went down there and they put me in a little box somewhere where he couldn't see me. And I went through the show with all the people that came on. Then they came to collect me, took me around the back. And I'm going, here we go. I'm not seeing him for ages. And then they said, Bob was doing the comparing, and he said, "Now I'd like to introduce you to a friend that's been a long friend of Graham Nash for such a long time." And he said, "Allan Clarke." And I came on, everyone, yeah, because they were all fans of Graham, really. They went, "Hey." And then I did my bit, you know. My friend is sitting over there. I met him 72 years ago, and blah blah blah. And liked him. And then Graham, and he came on stage and he put his arms around me. It's all over YouTube. You see that, and he whispered in my ear. He said, "It's really great to see you, man." He said, "I want you back in my life." It's one of those emotional things when you've actually met a friend that you've known for all that length of time. And I thought, he's right, but now is not the time to do it. You're going to sing next. You sing. You sing. So, of course, I went up and sat on the back of the stage on the left-hand side, and he started doing Teach Your Children. And I just can't help it when I hear him singing. I just sang along with him. And there was a guy sat next to me, who was probably the management of the theatre, and I'm singing along, and I get to the end of it, and he goes, bam, and everybody applauses. And this guy said to me, he said, it's not every day that you hear Graham Nash and Allan Clarke together singing Teach Your Children. He said, thank you very much. I thought, oh, wow. That might be a pointer, another sign, Anyway, I did give him the plaque, and he said, we must get together and we must do something. And it was more than a year that went past of us saying, we must do something. We must do something. And I wrote a song called I'll Never Forget, which I wrote about me and Graham. And it was about the toing and froing, about should we do it, should we not? Should we go there? Should we not? Well, what do you think about it? What do you think about it? I'm not really making a decision to do it. So this song, I sent it to him. I said, look, are we going to do it or not? And when he heard this song, he said, yeah, let's do it. There's a lot going on in Graham's life at that time, that he had a lot to think about. And I think that waiting that long, he was in a good place. He got to the place that he always wanted to be. And COVID came along, of course, so we were having to do it like everybody else does it when you can't leave your house, doing it on, email and things like that. I was sending my tracks down to Francis, and then I was putting my vocal on it on my vocal here, and then sending that down to Francis. Then he was sending it over to me. Then I was sending it to Graham. Then Graham was sending it back to me, saying, "Yeah, I like this. I'll do this and I'll do that." And we got through half of the album, and Graham said to me, he said, "Look," he said, "I think this album is sounding more like a solo album with me as your guest." He always thinks that way, Graham never thinks about having the lead on something that I'm trying to do. And he said to me, look, he said, I'll do all the harmonies on this album. He said, but the songs that you're writing, I always thought that the songs that we're writing was to actually have me and Graham as the pair that had never parted, but were still singing together, doing that harmony on songs maybe just like what the Hollies would do, but the sound would always be there, which is mine and Graham's song voices together, making that particular sound. And I thought, well, great, this is great, because now he's left me to do more decisions and things like that, which somehow I felt free, somehow I felt free. But I think that I knew that at that time, Graham writes some great songs. But, he's been away over there for such a long time. He's in the American way. He's even an American citizen. And he is more or less American now. And being with Crosby, Stills, and Young now and again, he got into a way of writing songs with their harmonies in his head, with the three of them together. And the sort of lyric content of what he put down was more an American lyric rather than an English writing a song about a certain predicament or whatever. And I think that he knew that, because I did try a couple of things on the songs, which he said, the vocal's great, but I knew within his mind, he was saying, it doesn't sound like me and David. And it's right, actually. I couldn't put songs out with Graham with him singing harmony that had written by him in a Crosby, Stills, Nash and way, because it wouldn't sound like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, But we came to the decision that would be the best way to go, and I think he's done a great job, and he has done a great job, and I thank him for doing it. And I hope actually that this will go for us. You know, we both in our later stages of life, and octogenarians, as they call them, and that he called them, and you know, it'd be nice to go out on a good way with maybe a hit album. I don't know. It doesn't really matter, because as that song says, it doesn't matter whatever happens, I'll never forget. And that relationship that I had with Graham, and now I have that back again.
That's really good. It's a great. I mean, I was listening to the single "Buddies Back," and you can hear that it's that nice full circle. It's like you know,
Graham wrote that and with the backing track to it, and I thought, well, there he is. You know, that's it. You know, you can't go wrong with that. He's Buddies Back. It's who we love. The lyric to it tells you what we actually did when we started looking at ourselves in mirrors, trying to be either Eddie Cochran or whoever it was at that particular time. And he got it perfectly. You know, he sent the track with his harmonies on. No, with himself doing the whole album. He said, Alan, he says, you sing it, which I did. I sang the whole thing. I would have liked it to be a little bit higher, unfortunately, you know, but at that particular time, Graham was doing his own album as well, and I couldn't say, excuse me, can you make that just maybe a half higher? No, but it sounds good anyway. It sounds great. And I put my harmony on it, and he said, well, you know, if you want to do anything else to the track, let it be yours. So Francis and I worked on the track to give it a bit more brightness and a bit more of the drum rolls that everybody used to use, and a few little hand claps now and again, just to bring it back to what it sounded like, you know. And it was really, it went great, went wonderful. BMG loved it, you know, straight away. You know, when he knew I was doing it with Graham, he rang home and said, I've got to put it out. And I said, well, no, you can't. No, I didn't. I said, yes, you can. and he has done. And then this chap came along and he said, well, we should do a video. I said, well, it's going to be pretty difficult, man. But he said, well, I've got this idea of doing a lyric video. And I thought that was quite good. Now, at the moment, I got in touch with Graham yesterday. Yeah, I think day before yesterday. I said, look, we need to do a video of some kind. I said, what I want you to do, if you would you actually film yourself doing the Buddies Back, and you do all your harmonies where your harm is, and film yourself doing it. I will do it at home in like side frame or front frame, and do the whole thing, and then we'll put them together and see what happens. So that's where I am with this at the moment, is doing the video, and I hope it works. It'll be good.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. A question they always kind of finish on, they ask every guest that comes on. It's a bit of a hypothetical one. If you could tour with one band from the past and one band from the present, who would they be?
I won't say the Beatles, because that'd be too competitive.
Yes.
Well, we used to tour with a lot of people in the band. We have toured with the Rolling Stones and the Kinks and the Searchers and others.
Yeah, you've done a lot.
Yeah, we've done a lot, but I wouldn't have the Ellie Brothers because they're too good. You know, we just fade, wouldn't we, to insignificance their game. I'm just thinking, the Kinks. Even though we toured with the Kinks, I think that would be a bit. You'd have a fight about who's going to be top of the bill.
That's true. Somebody would have to be.
And just say, "Oh yeah, I want to do that. I want to do that." I think I'd like to be on the same bill as the Killers.
Oh, okay.
Oh, what a fantastic single! What a fantastic band! You know, Are We Human? Oh God, what a single that was! Absolutely wonderful. Yeah. All right, then. I really go wild here. I mean, it would be a bit of a gamble to say this, but well, he has gone now, but it's Jerry Lee Lewis. Yes, I took my son to see Jerry in Northampton where I live. He was at a theatre there, and I knew the manager very well, and I desperately wanted to meet Jerry Lee Lewis. And I went backstage, and there were a lot of people there, but me and my son. We got into the dress room, and all of a sudden there was Jerry Lee, and he was wild. God, he was wild. Hang on. You know, and he had a towel and he was whipping it at people. Things like that. And my son said to me, "Can we leave now, Dad?" I think we should, don't you? And you know, you don't. You never ever go and meet your the people that you idolize. You know, many after, because you'd be very disappointed. I was disappointed there, but that was funny. When I saw Elvis, you know, I was about 3 feet away from Elvis, and I'm you know, I mean, he was quite portly. He was fat, and when you close your eyes, his voice was absolutely magnificent. And I was like 2 feet away from him, and it was absolutely, there's Elvis, wow! And he went around the stage with these, you know, these neckerchiefs, and he came and he stood right in front of me, and he got his neckerchief like that, and he took it off. I thought, I'm going for this. So he's reaching it out like that. Of course, these women all around me trying to get it, and my hands going up like that. And all of a sudden, I'm tugged back, and I thought, it was my wife, and she said, "Don't." She says, "It's for girls, not for boys." I could have the DNA. Lots of things for me in my life. Who would have thought? I stood in front of Elvin when, you know, many years before I closed down a factory.
That's true. I mean, it's crazy where life can take you.
Absolutely idiotic.
Well, thank you very much for joining me, Allan. It's been like such a great chat. And of course, for those that want to check out the new album, I'll Never Forget, it is out on the 7th of April. The link in the description for that is below to pre-order. So you can jump on that.
You're going to have to wait. Yeah, well, it's April the 7th, isn't it? So
yeah. There's a bit of a wait, but... Well, thank you very much, Allan. And
it's been my pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for letting me ramble.
No, it's been such a great chat.